Hello friends, today we will discuss about dacryocystitis and other disorders of the lacrimal system. As you are all aware of, lacrimal system comprises of the structures which are involved in formation of the tear and the drainage of the tear. You can see here in this beautiful diagram that the lacrimal gland is situated where the lacrimal gland is situated. Usually the lacrimal glands are of two types. One is main gland and others are accessory glands, and the main glands are situated in the lacrimal fossa, which is seen here beneath the upper eyelid at the in the lateral area, and from there and from the accessory lacrimal glands the tears are secreted, and they cover the eye to form the tear film, and they are drained by lacrimal system. So the lacrimal system comprises of friends lacrimal punctum, then lacrimal canaliculus, lacrimal sac, nasolacrimal duct, and finally they are drained into the nose. So let us summarize the anatomy of the lacrimal system. So the tears are produced by lacrimal glands, then they are sprayed by the lids, and the transport of tears is done through the puncta, canaliculus, lacrimal sac, and nasolacrimal duct. So the lacrimal punctae, there are two punctum in one eye. One is situated in the upper eyelid and other is in the lower eyelid. They are situated at the junction of ciliary and lacrimal portion of the lid margin. Basically, they are situated in the medial portion of the lid margin. And how to identify the punctum? There is a slight elevation around the punctum called as papilla, and from this the upper punctum is around 6 millimeter away from the inner canthus, whereas the lower punctum is 6.5 millimeter away from the inner canthus. When we blink, the puncta will move towards the groove near the plica semilunaris. From the puncta, the lacrimal canalicula start. It has got two parts: vertical part that is around 2 millimeter in length, and horizontal part is around 8 millimeter in length. And at the junction of these two, there is a slight dilatation called as ampulla. Then the lacrimal canaliculi pierce the lacrimal fascia and unite to form a lacrimal common canaliculus. The common canaliculus then opens into a small diverticulum in the sac called as lacrimal sinus at about 2.5 millimeter from the apex of the sac, and the valve of Rosenmuller prevents the reflex of tears back into the canaliculus. The lacrimal sac is situated in the lacrimal fossa formed by the lacrimal bone and the frontal process of maxilla. The fossa is bounded by anterior and posterior lacrimal crest. Okay. The lacrimal sac is around 15 millimeter in length and 5 millimeter in breadth, and the part above the point where the canalicula enter the sac is called as fundus. It is 3 to 5 millimeter in size, and the rest of the part is called as body. Just like stomach, it has also got fundus and body. Right. So from the lacrimal sac, the nasolacrimal duct starts. It courses downwards, backwards, and laterally, and opens into the inferior meatus of nose, about 30 millimeter from the opening of the nose. It is around 20 millimeter in length and 3 millimeter in diameter. And the bony portion means the portion of the nasolacrimal duct in the bone, that is called as interosseous part, is around 12.5 millimeter in length. It lies in the nasolacrimal canal formed by the maxilla and nasal concha. It is lateral to the medial meatus. And the intrameatal part means the part of the nasolacrimal duct inside the meatus is around 5.5 millimeter in length. The nasolacrimal duct opens into the inferior meatus, and this opening usually is patent at the birth, but sometimes it doesn't open at the birth. It doesn't canalize, and it will lead to congenital nasolacrimal duct obstruction or congenital dacryocystitis, and often this gets canalized on its own in few weeks. Okay, let us discuss about congenital dacryocystitis for later. So what is basically epiphora? Epi means above and phora means watering. So if there is overflow of tears because of excessive production, it is not called as epiphora. It is called as reflex lacrimation or watering. Suppose there is a foreign body or there is any irritation in the eye and it causes lacrimal glands to secrete excess tears. So this is reflex lacrimation. and when the overflow or watering is because of obstruction in the anywhere in the lacrimal system, lacrimal drainage system, then only it is called as EP4, and this is more common in women because of narrow nasolacrimal duct. So basically nasolacrimal most of the diseases of lacrimal system are because of obstruction of nasolacrimal duct. It could be primary when there is no cause is found, and it could be secondary because of either any injuries in the bone or infections or any tumors or other diseases. So how do we examine a patient with watering of the eye? We have to ask the detailed history, whether there was any injury to the eye, whether any foreign body has gone into the eye, and what is the type of watering, whether it is clear or whether there is any discharge. Then you should first see the location, dimension, and direction of the puncta. Okay. Sometimes we can see pounding of the punctum, which will indicate canaliculatis caused by actinomyces infection. And then we have to see the local lid abnormalities like trichiasis, entropion, symblepharon, to see whether there is any cause of reflex lacrimation. Okay. So this is how you do Roplast test, friends. This is very, very important because Roplast test is a very simple test which will tell us whether there is any obstruction of the lacrimal system. So it has got 100% specificity. For example, what do I mean by that? If Roplast test is positive, it means that there is obstruction in the lacrimal system. So how do we do that? Please note this image or the figure. We have to press at the medial canthus, just below and medial to the medial canthus. There, that is the portion where the sac is situated. We have to press below and medial to the medial canthus, and we have to observe whether any fluid, whether watery or discharge or sticky fluid, comes through the punctum. If any fluid comes to the punctum, through the punctum, that means the regurgitation test is positive. That means there is some obstruction in the lacrimal system, and that is causing discharge or watering to be accumulated in the lacrimal sac, and that is causing positive Roplast test. It is very simple test which we can perform. What we have to do, we have to just press with our either index finger or middle finger just medial and below the medial canthus of the eye, and see for any regurgitation through the punctum. So this is the first test that is performed if watering is notated. And very, very important, if a patient presents with corneal ulcer, we must do this test, because chronic dacryocystitis is an important predisposing factor for corneal ulcer. Okay, right. Normally when we press medial to the medial canthus, no regurgitation is seen, but if there is any discharge, then any fluid that is watery or mucoid or purulent, it means that there is obstruction of the nasolacrimal duct. Suppose the patient is having watering and the Roplast test is negative. What do we do? Then we can do a syringing to confirm the presence of obstruction in the canaliculus or nasolacrimal duct. So how do we do that syringing? So in syringing, what do we do? Basically, we inject fluid through the lacrimal punctum and we observe whether we can inject the fluid freely. If the fluid goes freely, usually it means that the lacrimal drainage system is patent, and patient will make a swallowing movement, or patient will tell that मेरे गले में कुछ आया है. So that is how we confirm whether it is patent or not. Suppose the fluid is not going freely and it is coming through the punctum, it is regurgitating through the punctum back into the eye, it means that there is some obstruction in the lacrimal drainage system. Logically, you can very clearly see if the obstruction is beyond the common canaliculus, then the fluid will come through the opposite punctum. But if the obstruction if the fluid comes through the same punctum, then usually the obstruction is in the same punctum. For example, I am doing syringing through the lower punctum and the fluid is coming only through the lower punctum, not through the upper punctum, it means that the lower canaliculus is blocked. Then we can also do this test called as fluorescein dye disappearance test, which will give an idea how fast the tear film will get drained out. What we have to do in this test, it's also a very simple test. Just put a drop of 2% fluorescein into the eye, and you see after 5 minutes, if you don't see any dye in the eye, then you can summarize that, you can infer that this dye has gone into the nose. Okay, and it can be performed in people who do not cooperate for syringing any children. If you are still in doubt, then you can pass a probe through the lacrimal punctum to see the level of obstruction. Yeah, if you can reach the bone through this probe, then it means that the obstruction is usually beyond the canaliculus. But if we cannot reach the bone, then you get something called as soft stop. Soft stop means canalicular obstruction, and hard stop means obstruction in the lacrimal sac or nasolacrimal duct. We can do other tests like dacrocystography, in which what do is we just inject radioactive dye through the punctum and take X-rays, so we can see the exact level of obstruction. And this test is important if we are suspecting any malignancy or any tumors in the system. We can also do CT scan, or we can also do endoscopy through the nose. So then let us come to some of the common disorders of the lacrimal drainage system. Genital dacrocystitis is very common, friends. It is present in 30% of neonates. This is because of failure to recanalize or delayed recanalization of the valve at the inferior meatus, and it resolves in its own because it will be canalized ultimately, and the obstruction will be gone. And what are the symptoms? The symptoms are classically watering from the eyes from birth, and so if it gets secondarily infected, then the watering may turn into discharge. The discharge may be mucoid or purulent. So what do? We have to just do observation. We have to counsel the mother that there is no problem. It will get resolved on its own. If you feel that the discharge is purulent or mucopurulent, then it indicates that there is secondary bacterial infection, and we can give antibiotic eye drops for limited period of time. And we can also tell the mother to do sac massage regularly. We'll discuss about sac massage in the subsequent slide. But if this all fails, say by the month of 9 months, we have to wait till 9 months of age, then we can do probing. What do we do in probing? We just pass a very thin probe through the lacrimal punctum. It will pass through the canaliculus and lacrimal sac and nasolacrimal duct, and we just get a giveaway feeling when we pierce that wall which was not canalized, and then it will solve our problem of obstruction. But sometimes we may require more than one probing, and if the probing fails, then we have to do dacrocystorhinostomy. But we can wait till 5 years because the anatomy in neonates or the infants is not clear. So we can wait till 5 years to proceed for DCR. So this slide shows how to do rigorous massage. So this is very important, friends, because sometimes even if we are general practitioners, mothers may come to you for guidance about this massage. So basically we have to use little finger for the massage, because that little finger will also be very big for the neonate or infant, and the nails of the finger should be trimmed. They should be blunt, they should not be sharp. And the idea is we have to press not on the eye, but we have to press against the nose, on the nose, at the junction of medial upper and lower eyelid. That's the portion which is called as medial canthus, and we have to press below and medial to the medial canthus on the bone. So it might help in expressing the fluid through the canaliculus and through the nasolacrimal duct, and it may help to open that, to canalize that inferior portion which is not canalized, and this technique is called as Kriegler's massage. So this massage can be done 15 times in the morning, afternoon, and the evening. And the idea is we should not harm the eye of the patient, eye of the child or infant. We have to direct our massage or pressure on the nose. So then let us come to a disorder called as chronic dacryocystitis. So what happens in chronic dacryocystitis? Usually there may be infection, there may be some infection or some foreign body in the lacrimal sac or the nasolacrimal duct, and it causes obstruction at that level, leading to chronic dacryocystitis. So this is a very important disease, friend, because it is very troublesome to the patient. The patient will have constant watering from the eyes and there will be discharge. Not only that, this it acts as a nidus of infection. This infection in the lacrimal sac can spread to the cornea, leading to corneal ulcer. It can also cause endophthalmitis when we operate for cataract in such patients. So that's why it is very, very important. So what are the stages of chronic dacryocystitis? Usually it is common in females and it is common in people with low socioeconomic status. So what are the stages? The stages are chronic catarrhal dacryocystitis, then there is mucocele, then there is suppurative dacryocystitis, and there is lastly the sac becomes fibrotic. So in the chronic catarrhal means watering. Patient will have continuous watering from the eyes, and the lacrimal sac will reveal clear fluid or few fibrous flakes. And usually the block is in the nasolacrimal duct. What happens that this fluid gets accumulated. There is a lacrimal sac, friends, is a potential space. So if there is obstruction distal to the lacrimal sac, then the fluid gets accumulated in the lacrimal sac, leading to distension of lacrimal sac and leading to a condition called as mucocele. Muco means mucoid and cele means cavity. So there is a lacrimal mucocele. So what are the symptoms? Patient will have constant watering and discharge from the eyes, and patient will also notice a swelling in the sac area, because the sac has enlarged. So that is lacrimal mucocele, and regurgitation test is usually very, very positive in such patients, and we can see that there is a milky or gelatinous fluid coming through the punctum, as you can see in this photograph. But sometimes even if there is mucocele, there is regurgitation test is negative. This is because the mucocele becomes encysted, so it is covered from the all side by the mucosa, so water cannot pass either towards punctum or towards nose. Then there is a stage called as stage of chronic suppurative dacryocystitis, in which you can see a frank mucopurulent discharge through the regurgitation. And sometimes after chronic repeated infection, the sac becomes fibrotic. So that will lead to stage of chronic fibrotic sac. So this is very, very important, friends, because chronic dacryocystitis, especially in patients with mucocele, there is a nidus of infection, there is a source of infection adjacent to the eye, and this can cause infection in the eye such as corneal ulcer, or suppose this patient gets operated for say cataract, then it can cause endophthalmitis. And the patient will have chronic intractable conjunctivitis because of repeated discharge, and there may be ectropion of the lower eyelid, maceration and eczema of the lower eyelid skin. So what do we do for chronic dacryocystitis, friends? The treatment of chronic dacryocystitis, the definitive treatment is usually surgical. We have to do surgeries. So there are basically three types of surgery that we can do. The first is called as dacryocystorhinostomy. Then second is dacryocystectomy, and third is conjunctivo-dacryocystorhinostomy. So what do we do in dacryocystorhinostomy, friends? We want to clear that block. Basically, we bypass the blocked nasolacrimal duct, and we make a new channel for the tears to pass through by creating flaps of the lacrimal sac and flaps of nasal mucosa. We pierce the bone which covers the nasal mucosa, and we make a communication between we suture these flaps together so that the fluid passes through through the middle meatus. So that is called as dacryocystectomy, cystorhinostomy. In dacryocystectomy, we don't we just remove the sac, but it will not solve the problem of ephora. Patient will have constant watering, because where will the tears go? And in conjunctival dacryocystorhinostomy, this procedure is done when there is block before common canaliculus. If the common canaliculus is blocked, then even if we make flaps in the lacrimal sac, still drainage won't be possible. So we have to make flaps. We have to cut the conjunctiva also, and we have to make conjunctival flaps also. That is called as conjunctival dacryocystorhinostomy. So how this slide shows how do we do dacryocystectomy. So we make a curvilinear incision around 12 millimeter in length, away from the 3 millimeter away from the medial canthus along the lacrimal crest, and then we separate the lacrimal sac and remove the lacrimal sac. So dacryocystectomy is done when the patient is very old and may not be able to tolerate dacryocystorhinostomy, or if we suspect any tumor in the lacrimal sac, then only we do dacryocystectomy. Sometimes a patient comes with corneal ulcer and dacryocystitis, then patient is already having inflammation in the eye. So but in this patient, sometimes we prefer dacryocystectomy. But friends, usually dacryocystorhinostomy is the treatment of choice. So this is how we do dacryocystorhinostomy. Please notice the opening. The block is delineated in a red black color, and we make an opening in the bone before that, means proximal to that block, and we punch out the bone there, and then we create flaps of the nasal mucosa and lacrimal sac, and we stitch them together. So in dacryocystorhinostomy, bypass is made between the sac and the middle meatus by making an opening in the intervening bones. And there are two types of DCR. External DCR means which we do through the skin, while endonasal DCR means which we do through the nose. So in external DCR, the connection is more successful as the passages are lined by mucosa, and we suture the sac with the nasal mucosa, and the bony ostium is also large, so there is a less chance of recanalization. So how do we do that? Basically, we expose the lacrimal sac, then we expose the lacrimal fossa, and then the bone is punched with the blunt dissector and extended with the sphenoidal punch, and then sac and nasal mucosa are cut to make two flaps which are sutured. In endonasal DCR, there is no incision on the face, and the bleeding is also less, the morbidity is also less, but the success rate is less than external DCR as the bony opening is small. So how do we make a bony opening with the bony punch through the nose, and then we can also place stents in the canaliculi. So let us now discuss the acute dacryocystitis. So acute dacryocystitis is nothing but acute inflammation of the lacrimal sac. So how do it present? Usually there is pain, swelling and redness over the sac region and watering. This may be there may be a previous history of epiphora in that patient, because patients with chronic dacryocystitis get repeated attacks of acute dacryocystitis, and then in the initial stage there will be only hardening of the skin, and later on there may be pus formation, and you can also see a swelling in the sac region. Okay. So this is a photograph showing how does acute dacryocystitis present. Please note that there is a swelling in the sac area, and it is red in color, indicative of acute inflammation. And there will be tenderness also. When we press, the patient will have pain, and there may be formation of pus, there may be formation of abscess in the lacrimal sac area, and this abscess may burst, leading to lacrimal fistula. So this infection may spread to the orbit, leading to orbital cellulitis. It may also spread to the cavernous sinus. That is a very dreaded complication, and it may form a fistula. So what do we do in acute dacryocystitis? Basically, usually we don't do surgery in acute dacryocystitis. We want the inflammation to reduce, because if we do surgery in acute dacryocystitis, there will be more pain, there will be more bleeding, and the infection may spread to the adjacent area. So first we control the infection with the help of systemic and topical antibiotics. Usually a combination of amoxicillin and cloxacillin is a drug of choice in treating acute dacryocystitis. Then we also can give some analgesics or anti-inflammatory drugs to reduce the pain and inflammation. And hot fermentation will also help in relieving the pain. If there is pus formation, then we can just make a nick in the dependent area to drain the pus. Okay, and once this acute dacryocystitis resolves, maybe we can wait for 4 to 6 weeks. Then we should treat the chronic dacryocystitis, because usually acute dacryocystitis is because of some block in the nasolacrimal system. So DCR has to be done. So that's all, friends, about acute dacryocystitis and chronic dacryocystitis and the lacrimal system. So the important questions here, or the important points here noted to be noted here, is how do we do Roux-Plast test, then how do we do syringing, then what are the features of chronic dacryocystitis, and what is the difference between DCR and DCT, dacrocystectomy and dacrocystorhinostomy. And I just forgot to mention one point about this neonatal dacryocystitis, that whenever patient comes with congenital dacryocystitis, whenever an infant comes with watering in the eye, we have to also keep in possibility of congenital glaucoma, because congenital glaucoma also can present with watering of the eyes. So that's why we have to examine the cornea and we have to see the corneal diameter in such patient. So friends, please go through this PowerPoint presentation or through this lecture, and if you have any doubts, you are free to ask me anytime. Thank you so much.